Disneyland, a magical place filled with all the happiness, churros, and public domain Mickey Mouse horror games that you can think of. Last week, I was in California, and I went to Disneyland on Christmas. Here's a picture of that, and here's why Disneyland is an absolute nightmare. Sorry, I just had no way of transitioning. I didn't really have an intro written for, this is just the transition. Now you're probably asking yourself, Keith, why would you go to Disneyland on Christmas? It's a popular theme park, probably the most popular theme park in the world, and it's the biggest holiday of the year. I would argue in most cultures, Christmas is the biggest holiday of the year. Why would you go to Disneyland? Why would you kind of set yourself up for that? And my question to you in response is, did you want a video this week, you content-hungry troglodyte? Reason number one, the rides. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's Disneyland. All the rides are nice and cute and fun and Disney-like, but you would be so far from the truth. It's a Small World itself is a nightmare, and I don't really have time to explain all that because I have a mental block on the song. But even with all that, I can't even begin to tell you about how haunting some of these rides are. You know what? No, screw it. Let's talk about Mr. Toad. So for those of you who don't know, Mr. Toad's Wild Adventure is a ride at Disneyland that stars Mr. Toad, who is only in Mr. Toad's Wild Adventure at Disneyland and the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad or something. Those are his only two appearances in real Disney material. So he has just this ride at Disneyland that's just his. And also, here's what he looks like. Not to be confused with this Toad from Mario. It's a different thing. I was confused when I was learning about this. So anyway, Mr. Toad's Wild Adventure revolves around Mr. Toad, who's a lawyer, which is important for the story of this ride, because you start going through this ride and it's this nice little calming ride, and then all of a sudden, you start to think that Mr. Toad might be in some sort of trouble because police start showing up, and you start running away from police, and then you go through and crash into things and almost run into giant blocks of TNT, a whole bunch of other shit, and then you randomly just end up in court, and they sentence you to being guilty, right? And so then you just wind up in hell. In hell! With demons, flying around. And there's this nice little upbeat music in the background while you're just driving through hell on this ride. And Satan's just in the background. And then the ride just kind of ends. I should also probably mention how you get into hell, because when you leave the court after being declared guilty by the judge for a crime that you don't really know because you weren't probably paying attention to the ride that much, you get hit by a goddamn train. And then you get sent to hell. And I just feel like there's this whole introspective thing about lawyers going to hell, and I feel like there's something there that Disney's trying to say, but I can't really put my finger on what, because I couldn't grasp riding the ride when I was riding the ride, and I had more questions than answers. And listen, okay, if you thought that Mr. Toad's Adventure, the way I just described it, wasn't really that bad, let me tell you about the Pinocchio ride. The ride basically revolves around you getting kidnapped and then being surrounded by other kidnapped and abused people, characters, and animals. And then you try to break your way out of it. And at the end, you end up escaping. But none of the people who were abused, animals, or people escape with you. So you just back with your dad or whatever, and you don't, where's everyone else? What happened to them? What's going on with them? Are they still captured? Are they not free too? Did you not rescue all the captured animals and people who were also being abused? What happened with that? I need more. So talking more about the rides, let's actually talk about something specific with the rides, and that is the lines for the rides, especially on holidays. Because rides for Disneyland, the lines are long enough as is, but on a holiday, I swear to God, they are an hour extra or longer per ride. So think about this, right? Your family saves up the entire year for you and your family of four to go to Disneyland. I mean, most suburban families are families of four. This is just a general assumption here. But anyway, you're saving up for your trip to go to Disneyland for the year, right? You have a day or two to go to Disneyland for the year. And so naturally you think, oh, what better time of year to go to Disneyland than on Christmas? Because who doesn't want to go to Disneyland on Christmas? How much fun does Disneyland on Christmas sound? Apparently fun, because everyone was there. So then when you get there, and you realize that everyone else is at the park, you get to go and pay this much money to go on one ride because everything else is being taken up. So you get to go on that one little teacup ride in the middle of the park because everything else has an hour plus wait, and you don't have enough time to wait that long because your kids gotta pee, and then they gotta go take a nap, and then they gotta go get food, and then they gotta go home and sleep because they're 8. And even if the lines aren't too bad on the rides, I guarantee you the rides are going to be down because some kid ate too much candy, went on a ride, and then threw up everywhere. So the ride's going to be down for 3 goddamn hours in the middle of the day. Now, the way to get around it is great because you can get the lightning lanes through the genie thing or whatever the hell it's called. But even then, you're paying more money to just have a normal Disneyland park experience where you get to go on some of the rides without waiting an entire length of a feature film to go on the ride for 5 minutes. And don't even get me started on the DAS pass, you know, like the disabled pass thing, because the people who are physically disabled and need the pass to be able to go on a separate line so that the loading and unloading isn't as slow, that makes sense. And the people who have like extreme crippling anxiety around waiting in lines and stuff, that makes complete sense to be able to go and get that pass and be able to have a lightning lane to yourself to be able to do things. That makes sense. I'm talking about the grown Disney adults who are going to Disney for like the 11th time this year that got another DAS pass because of their mild anxiety around crowds, which doesn't make sense because you spend most of your time in Disneyland. But it's those kind of people that are going to, as soon as their pass says, go to the line, cut all the elderly people and the small children who've been waiting their entire lives to ride this ride, just to ride it again for 11th time this year, for just because they wanted to. As an aside, I really feel sorry for like the employees of the parks, like Disneyland and Disney World both, because they have to deal with this stuff. And I know that it's morally weird when you see people who have literally nothing wrong and you can tell that there's nothing wrong, like it's a fake pass thingy. I feel bad for them because they just have to accept it. And there's like people online who physically couldn't like do that or weren't like smart enough, I guess, but it's kind of scummy, so not smart enough. But it's just, this is just an aside to be like, I feel bad for the Disney employees because they're overworked, they're exhausted, it's Christmas, they don't want to be there. They have to accept these passes from these people who don't deserve the passes and they've seen for the 12th time this year. It's just ridiculous. Also, on the subject of Disney adults, just because I feel like they're going to come for me in the comments, I'm not talking about like parents of children who love Disney as much as their children because they're inspired by their children's love for it to also love it in the same way. That's cool. It's a family bonding thing. I'm also not talking about the adults who casually enjoy Disney and like the movies and grew up watching the movies and now as an adult still enjoy the movies. I'm talking about the people who made Disney their entire life. You know, you go on social media and all of their names on social media are Disney puns. Like, they've planned their entire lives around Disney. Like, they're gonna have their wedding at the Disney castle, and they've like planned that they're going to marry someone who loves Disney just as much as they do, which I don't think is possible because look at these people. And then on top of that, they spend almost all of their time at Disney, and whenever they meet Disney characters for like the billionth time at the park, it's the same reaction as if they met their long-lost dad who abandoned them when they were 3 for the first time. Every single time. Like, these are the kind of people who every year that Disney announces a movie wait patiently and patiently and patiently for this Disney movie to come out, only for it to be a slightly different twist on another Disney movie with different characters that might have some sort of slightly edgier personality to them, but they eat that shit up. Even though it's the same movie, it's just like the Marvel shit and the Star Wars shit. It's the same type of shit that they keep putting out, but people just keep eating it up, and that is your audience. That's who loves it. Like, listen, okay, I'm all for you liking something that you liked as a kid and like loving it now as an adult too. Like, that's fine. But like, if you're a Disney adult, it's almost like basing your entire life off of a children's game. It's almost like if someone based their entire week-to-week mood and personality over the performance of a favorite team's like performance in a children's game, like how that team did week to week at a children's game. And that person is so obsessed with the children's game that their entire mood and personality is dictated by that singular performance. And then if it goes bad one week and good the other week, it's basically like just like one big giant mood swing. Like, even though you don't have any control over the players or the game or the outcome because it's all controlled by Vegas sportsbooks, you don't actually let that stop you from being irrationally upset or irrationally happy about the result of a children's game. Like, it's completely irrational for you, a grown adult, to be this obsessed and this controlled by something that was designed for children in, you know, Disney and Disney products. Just like it's just as irrational for you to be controlled by something that was designed for children to be played by children. And as I'm saying this stuff more and more, I'm starting to kind of contradict myself a little bit, so I'm going to stop talking and kind of just finish the video now. Ho ho, ho ho, ho, I am just kidding. Hold on, I forgot about this because we need to talk about the price for the amount of tickets that you can get at Disneyland. So let's say you want a park hopper pass at Disney, right? So you can go to both Disney California Adventure and Disneyland. Well, that's gonna run you probably about $250, right? And that just gets you entrance into the park and to go on the rides around the parks, right? Which is okay, I guess, but that's fine. Like, just bear with me here. So once you get into the parks, it's all nice and dandy, right? But let's say you want like a commemorative pin to remember the fact that you were at Disneyland with your family or something, right? That's going to cost you like 15 to 20 bucks a person, okay? Now let's just say you want like a t-shirt or something to celebrate the fact that you were at Disney, you like t-shirts or like a hat or something. That's going to run you $25 to $40, right? But God forbid you want like a sweater or a sweatshirt or like a Spirit jersey. And if you're asking yourself what a Spirit jersey is, I don't really know how to describe it other than this. That's what a Spirit jersey is. Those things are going to cost you anywhere from $70 to $100 per person. So if we remember what I said earlier about going as a family, saving up all your money for a year, and like going to Disneyland, you're probably just getting the hotel and tickets, right? That doesn't include if little Jimmy wants his favorite little Disney figure, or a little pin, or like a t-shirt, or if your wife wants a sweater or a sweatshirt, or if your husband wants a sweater or a sweatshirt, or if your Apache attack helicopter partner wants a sweater or a sweatshirt. Like, it doesn't account for that. So you get there with your middle-class suburban family, hoping to make all the core memories you can as a family because you want to go to Disneyland on Christmas, only for you to maybe ride one ride with your entire family, wait in countless other lines that are inevitably cut by Disney adults with DAS passes, spend essentially your entire child's college fund because they wanted to build a lightsaber at Galaxy's Edge and buy a singular soda, and then you walk out of Disneyland at the end of the day having done basically nothing with a whole boatload of merchandise that you can't fit in the suitcase to take home with you, and somehow you have a churro, even though you didn't buy a churro. And that, kids, is the magic of Disney. So, Disneyland, still want to go? For real though, I genuinely had a good time on my Disneyland trip on Christmas, even though it was absolutely chaotic. And I'm sure that if you guys also planned it for a time that wasn't the absolute worst time of year to plan a Disney trip, you'd probably enjoy it too. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and remember to subscribe so that I stop crying myself to sleep at night because I have to work a dead-end job. Thanks for stopping by the Knowledge Corner this week. I'll see you next week.